Jake Morrison floated in the darkness of space. His small fighter ship was broken and cold. The battle had been brutal. His ship took too many hits from enemy weapons. Now the engines were dead. The weapons did not work. Even the radio barely had power. He was alone in the endless black between the stars. 73 days. That was how long Jake had been drifting. 73 days of rationing food bars and water packets. 73 days of watching his power cells slowly die. 73 days of hoping someone would find him before his air ran out. The distress beacon kept sending its signal into the void. But space was huge. The chances of rescue were getting smaller every day. Jake spent his time checking systems that would never work again. He tried to fix things that were too damaged to repair. It kept him busy. It kept him from thinking about dying alone in the dark. He was a fighter pilot. He had trained for combat, for tactics, for survival. But nobody trained you for the waiting. Nobody told you how to deal with the silence. Then one day, his scanner made a sound. A ship was approaching. Jake felt hope surge through him. Maybe it was the coalition. Maybe they had finally found him. He pulled himself to the control panel and looked at the screen. His hope died instantly. The ship was not human. It was not friendly. The bioorganic hull design told him everything he needed to know. The Vraken had found him. The Vraken were bad news. Everyone in the galaxy knew about them. They were raiders, slavers. They took prisoners and sold them. They destroyed ships for fun. They were cruel and they enjoyed it. Jake had seen what they did to captured crews. He had no intention of becoming their prisoner. Death was better than what the Vraken did to people. He grabbed his emergency pack. Inside was a survival suit, some food, water purification tablets, and basic medical supplies. Not much, but it was all he had. The Vraken ship was getting closer. He could hear them cutting through his hull. They would be inside in minutes. Jake sealed his helmet and moved to the emergency airlock. His scanner showed a moon nearby. It was close enough to reach with his emergency thruster pack. The moon was listed as Nexus 7 in the database. The information was basic. Breathable air. Water present. Temperature range survivable. But the warning flags were clear. Dangerous wildlife. No colonies. Avoid landing. Jake smiled grimly. Dangerous wildlife was better than the Vraken. He opened the airlock. Space was silent and cold. Behind him, he heard metal tearing as the Vraken broke into his ship. Jake did not look back. He pushed off hard, firing his thruster pack at maximum burn. The small rockets pushed him away from his dying ship, toward the rust-colored moon below, toward unknown dangers. But at least he would die free. The descent was rough. The thruster pack was meant for short jumps in zero gravity, not for atmospheric entry. Jake felt the heat building around him as he hit the thin upper atmosphere. His suit protected him, but barely. The computer in his helmet screamed warnings. Impact in 2 minutes. Velocity too high. Angle too steep. He was going to hit hard. Jake tried to control his fall. He fired the thrusters in short bursts, trying to slow down, trying to find a better angle. The ground was rushing up fast. He could see mountains and valleys, strange purple vegetation, and something else. Large shapes moving across the surface. Living things. Big living things. The wildlife warning had not been joking. The impact knocked him unconscious. His suit absorbed most of the shock. The emergency gel inside the suit hardened on impact to protect his body. But it still hurt. When Jake woke up, his whole body ached. His head pounded. His left side felt like it was on fire. The suit medical system was already working, pumping painkillers into his blood, releasing tiny repair robots to fix broken bones and torn muscles. He lay still for several minutes, just breathing, just being alive. Through his cracked faceplate, he could see the sky. It was orange and red, like rust, like blood. 2 small suns hung in that alien sky. The air smelled wrong. Not bad, just different, like metal and strange flowers mixed together. Jake slowly sat up. His suit reported damage, but nothing critical. He had air for 3 days. The water recycler still worked. The medical system was good. His right arm hurt, but it moved. His legs worked. He could walk. That was good because he had no idea where he was or what to do next. He looked around. The landscape was harsh, rocky, sharp black stones jutted from red dirt. Strange plants grew in clusters. They glowed softly with purple light. In the distance, massive shapes moved. The creatures were far away, but Jake could see they were huge. much bigger than any animal on Earth. They walked on multiple legs. Their movements were slow but deliberate. Hunting movements. Jake stood up carefully. Every muscle protested. He checked his pack. The supplies had survived. He had a knife, a small toolkit, emergency rations for 5 days. Not much to survive on an alien moon, but humans were good at surviving. It was what they did best. He started walking. He had no destination, just away from the crash site, away from where the big creatures might come to investigate. He needed to find shelter, find water, find a way to survive long enough to figure out a plan. The ground was rough under his boots. The gravity was slightly less than Earth. Each step took him further than normal. It felt strange, dreamlike. Then he heard it, a sound that made him freeze. A scream, high-pitched, terrified. Unmistakably the scream of a child. Jake turned toward the sound. His combat training kicked in. He had been a soldier before he was a pilot. Soldiers moved toward people in danger. It was what they did. The scream came again, closer this time, more desperate. Jake started running. His damaged body protested, but he ignored it. Someone was in trouble. Someone needed help. Everything else could wait. He came over a rise and saw it. The ruins of a building, metal and plastic scattered across the ground. Broken equipment, shattered containers, and in the middle of the wreckage a small figure, a child but not human. The skin was blue, crystalline blue, like living sapphire. The eyes were large and glowed with soft light. The child was alien, different, but the fear on that small face was universal. Around the ruins, things moved. Creatures, nightmares made real. They were 3 meters tall, multiple arms ending in claws, mouths that split open in 4 directions, teeth like saw blades. They circled the child like sharks, making clicking sounds, hunting sounds, playing with their prey before the kill. Jake did not think. He just acted. He pulled out his survival knife. It was small, useless against those monsters, but it was all he had. He also had a flare gun. 1 shot for emergencies. This counted as an emergency. He aimed the flare gun at the sky and fired. The flare exploded in brilliant white light, magnesium burning at thousands of degrees. The light was blinding. The creatures recoiled. Their clicking turned to screeches. They backed away from the intensity. Their eyes were not built for such brightness. Jake ran forward. His suit gave him extra strength, extra speed. He reached the child in seconds, grabbed her with 1 arm. She was light, fragile. He turned and ran. The creatures were already recovering from the light. They were chasing fast, too fast. Jake pushed his suit to maximum. The exoskeleton whined. His muscles burned. But he ran faster. He saw it ahead. A cave opening, narrow, too small for the creatures. He dove inside just as claws raked across his back. The suit armor held but barely. He kept moving deeper into the darkness. The alien girl clung to him, shaking, whimpering, making sounds he did not understand. But he understood fear. That was the same everywhere. The creatures could not follow. They were too big. They screamed and clawed at the entrance but could not reach inside. Jake kept moving until the sounds faded, until they were deep in the cave, safe, for now. He activated his suit lights. The cave walls glowed. Crystals reflected the light. It was almost beautiful. Jake set the girl down gently. She looked up at him with those huge, glowing eyes. Tears ran down her blue cheeks. She was maybe 7 or 8 years old, small, helpless, alone, just like he had been. Jake took off his helmet. He wanted her to see his face, to know he was not a monster in a suit. He smiled at her, the kind of smile his mother used to give him when he was scared. A reassuring smile, a promise that everything would be okay. He pulled out a water packet from his pack, offered it to her. She hesitated, then took it, drank carefully. Her hands were shaking. When she finished, she looked at him again. This time something had changed in her expression. Not just fear, something else. Hope maybe, or trust. Jake pointed to himself, said his name clearly. She watched him, tried to repeat it. The sounds came out wrong but close enough. He smiled, nodded. She pointed to herself, made sounds that were musical, complex, beautiful. He tried to repeat them, failed completely. She almost smiled. Almost. They sat in the cave as the alien sun set outside, 2 strangers from different worlds, brought together by chance, by violence. By survival, Jake had no plan. No idea how they would survive. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would protect this child. He would keep her safe. Even if it killed him, because that was what humans did. They protected the helpless. They fought for those who could not fight for themselves. It was in their blood, in their bones, in their stubborn, impossible, wonderful nature. Outside, the monsters waited. Inside, a human and an alien child sat in the darkness. And somehow, against all logic, Jake felt something he had not. Lyra watched him work. She understood something was changing. Something important was happening. When Jake finally sat down to rest, she came to him, put her small blue hand on his arm, looked at him with those eyes that saw too much. She asked him a question in her language. Jake understood it anyway. She wanted to know if they would make it, if they would survive. Jake looked at this brave child who had lost everything, who had survived alone in hell, who trusted him completely, and he lied. He told her yes, told her they would make it, told her everything would be fine. He said it with confidence, with certainty, with all the conviction he could fake, because she needed to believe, needed hope, needed something to hold on to. But in his heart, the first night in the cave was long and cold. Jake used his emergency thermal blanket to keep the alien girl warm. She had finally fallen asleep, curled up against his side. Her breathing was steady now. The fear had faded into exhaustion. Jake stayed awake watching the cave entrance, listening for the creatures outside. He used the time to think, to assess their situation. It was bad. They were trapped on a hostile moon, surrounded by predators. His suit had maybe 2 days of power left. His supplies would last less than a week. No one knew he was here. No one was coming to rescue them. They were completely alone, but Jake had survived worse. At least he told himself that. He had survived combat, survived being shot down, survived 73 days drifting in space. He could survive this too. He had to, because now he was not alone. Now someone depended on him. That changed everything. When dawn came, the two suns painted the sky in shades of orange and gold. The girl woke up slowly. She looked around, confused for a moment. Then she saw Jake and seemed to remember. Her large eyes filled with tears again, but she did not cry. She was brave. Jake respected that. He shared his breakfast ration with her. Half a nutrition bar and some water. Not much, but it was all they had. She ate carefully, taking small bites, making it last. She understood scarcity. That told Jake she had been surviving alone for a while. Maybe days, maybe longer. After they ate, Jake started exploring the cave system. He kept the girl close. His suit lights revealed a network of tunnels. Some went deep into the moon. Others branched off in different directions. The walls were covered in crystals that glowed faintly. They provided some light even without his suit. That was useful. His suit power would not last forever. They found water in a small underground pool. Jake tested it with his suit sensors. It was clean, drinkable. That solved one problem. Water meant they could survive longer. The girl drank eagerly. She had been thirsty. Very thirsty. Jake made a mental note. She needed more water than humans. Her body processed it differently. Over the next few days, they established a routine. Jake would explore the caves during the day. The girl stayed close, watching him work, learning. He showed her how to collect water, how to identify safe areas, how to move quietly. She was a fast learner. Her young mind absorbed everything quickly, understanding that knowledge meant survival. Communication was difficult at first. They did not share a language, but they found ways. Gestures, drawings in the dirt, repetition. Jake learned that her name was something like Lyra when he tried to say it with his human mouth. She learned to recognize his name, to understand basic commands: stay, follow, hide, danger. Through patient effort, Jake learned her story. She was Catherine. Her people came from somewhere in the inner colonies. Her family had been scientists. They were studying the moon, researching the minerals here. Then the Vraken came. Their ships descended like a swarm of locusts. They killed everyone except Lyra. She had been small enough to hide in a service tunnel. She stayed there while the Vraken destroyed everything. When they left, she was alone, surrounded by ruins, surrounded by the bodies of her family. She survived on emergency supplies, on recycled water, on hope that someone would come. But days passed. No rescue came, only the monsters that lived on the moon. Jake felt anger burning in his chest. The Fracken did this. They killed her family, left her to die. He had no love for the Fracken before. Now he hated them with a cold, hard fury. But hate would not help Lyra. Hate would not keep them alive. So he pushed it down, focused on survival, on making their shelter better, safer, more permanent. He salvaged materials from his suit, from the wreckage outside. It was dangerous work. The creatures still prowled the surface. Jake called them Reapers because of how they killed, how they hunted. He had to move fast when he went outside. Grab what he needed. Get back to the cave before they noticed. With the salvaged materials, Jake built tools. A better knife, a spear, containers for water, a basic filtration system. He even created a crude heating element using the thermal vents in the deeper caves. It was not much, but it was more than nothing. Each improvement increased their chances of survival. Lyra helped when she could. She showed him edible plants, strange fungus that grew in the dark corners of the caves. They tasted terrible, but they provided nutrition. She taught him words in her language. He taught her words in his. They were building a shared vocabulary, a way to communicate better, to understand each other. The days blended together. Jake lost count after the first week. Time did not matter much. Survival mattered. Food, water, safety. Those were the important things. Each day they survived was a victory. Each night they slept without the Reapers finding them was a gift. Jake learned about the Reapers through careful observation. They were dangerous but not smart. They hunted by movement and heat. Their vision was poor in bright light. They were most active during the cooler hours. Dawn and dusk. During the hottest part of the day, they sheltered in caves. Different caves. Deeper ones. Away from where Jake and Lyra hid. This knowledge was power. Jake used it. He ventured outside only during the hot hours, when the Reapers were sleeping. He moved quickly, efficiently, always watching, always ready to run. Lyra waited in the cave, watching for his return, trusting him to come back. That trust pushed him to be more careful, more cautious. He could not let her down. One day, Jake found something important. A piece of equipment from the research station. A power cell, partially charged. It was not much power, but it was something. Hope bloomed in his chest. With power, he could do more. Maybe repair his emergency beacon, maybe send a distress signal, maybe get rescued. He dragged the power cell back to the cave. Lyra watched with curious eyes as he worked.
Jake pulled out his beacon.
The one from his suit. It was damaged, but maybe fixable. He had tools now. Basic ones, but enough. He worked through the night, connecting wires, bypassing broken circuits, praying to whatever gods might listen. The beacon flickered to life. Jake held his breath. The display showed minimal power, enough for maybe one signal burst, one chance. He programmed it carefully, set it to broadcast on all coalition frequencies, added their location, added a priority code, made it clear they needed rescue urgently. Then he pressed the button. The beacon hummed, drew power from the cell, and sent its signal out into space, into the vast emptiness. Jake watched the display until the power died, until the beacon went dark. He had no idea if it worked, if anyone heard, but it was done. All they could do now was wait. Lyra looked at him with those big glowing eyes. She did not need to speak. He saw the question there. Jake smiled, nodded, told her in simple words that help might come, that someone might hear, that they might be rescued. She smiled back, a real smile this time, full of hope, full of trust. It broke Jake's heart a little because he was not sure he believed his own words. Days passed. No response came. The hope began to fade. Maybe the signal was too weak. Maybe no one was close enough to hear. Maybe they were truly alone. Jake tried not to show his disappointment. Tried to stay positive for Lyra, but it was hard. Very hard. Then one night Jake woke to a sound. A soft beeping from his suit computer. He thought he was dreaming. The computer was dead. Had been dead for days. But the beeping continued. He crawled over, looked at the display, and froze. There was a message. A response. Someone had heard their signal. His hand shook as he read the message. It was short, simple, but it changed everything. A Catherine patrol ship had picked up the distress call. They were in the sector, searching for survivors from the research station. They were coming. They could not land on the surface. Too dangerous. But they would send a shuttle. To a clearing 6 kilometers away. In 3 days, Jake looked at Lyra sleeping peacefully. 6 kilometers. It might as well be 6,000. The surface was crawling with reapers. They had barely survived one encounter. How could they travel 6 kilometers across open ground, through reaper territory, without weapons, without support? It was impossible. But Jake had learned something during his time on the moon. Humans did not accept impossible. They found ways. They adapted. They endured. And most importantly, they did whatever it took to protect those they cared about. Lyra had become important to him. More than important. She was his responsibility, his purpose, his reason to keep fighting. He spent the next 2 days preparing, making weapons from salvaged metal, creating explosives from chemicals he found in the caves, planning routes, identifying choke points, places where they could hide, places where they could fight if they had to. He was one man, but he was human, and humans were very good at fighting against impossible odds. The day of the journey arrived. Jake woke before dawn. He had not slept much. His mind kept running through scenarios, planning, calculating, trying to find the safest path to the landing zone. There was no safe path. Every route crossed Reaper territory, but some were less dangerous than others. He prepared their supplies carefully: water, food, medical supplies, weapons, the homemade explosives he had created, a spear with a metal tip, his survival knife. Not much against creatures that could tear a human apart, but better than nothing. Jake had learned long ago that humans survived because they used every advantage, every tool, every trick. When you were weaker, you had to be smarter. Lyra was already awake, sitting quietly, watching him prepare. She knew today was important. She had packed her own small bag with things Jake had not even noticed. A piece of crystal from the cave, a smooth stone, small things that meant something to her, reminders of survival, of hope. Jake felt his chest tighten. She was so young, too young for this. But life did not care about fare. They ate breakfast in silence, shared the last of the good rations, drank water from the cave pool one final time. Then Jake checked his makeshift weapons, tested the explosives, made sure everything was secure. Lyra put on a salvaged environmental suit. Too big for her, but it would protect her from the harsh sun and the cold. Jake helped her adjust the straps, made sure she could breathe, could move. When they were ready, Jake knelt down to her level, looked into those glowing eyes. He told her the plan in simple words. They would move fast, stay quiet, hide when needed, fight only if they had to. She needed to stay close. Trust him, do exactly what he said. No questions, no hesitation. Their lives depended on it. Lyra nodded. Her small face was serious, determined. She understood. Jake felt pride mixed with fear. She was so brave, braver than many adults he had known. He stood up, took a deep breath, and they left the cave that had been their home. Their shelter, their safe place, heading into the unknown. The first kilometer was nerve-wracking but manageable. They moved through rocky terrain, using boulders and outcrops for cover. The suns were rising, casting long shadows. Jake used those shadows, moved from darkness to darkness. Lyra followed close behind. Her steps were light, quiet. She had learned well. They saw their first reaper at the 2-kilometer mark. It was alone, hunting, moving slowly through a valley. Jake and Lyra froze, stayed perfectly still. The creature had poor vision but excellent hearing. Any sound would draw its attention. They waited. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the reaper moved away, disappearing behind a ridge. They continued. The terrain got harder, steeper. They had to climb over rock formations, squeeze through narrow passages. Jake went first, testing each path, making sure it was safe. Then helping Lyra up. She never complained, never slowed down, just kept moving. Trusting him completely, that trust was a heavy weight, a responsibility he could not fail. At 3 kilometers, their luck ran out. They came around a corner and found themselves face to face with 3 reapers. The creatures were resting in the shade of a large rock formation. They saw Jake and Lyra immediately. The clicking started. That terrible hunting sound. The Reapers rose to their full height. 3 meters of muscle and claw and teeth. Jake did not hesitate. He grabbed one of his explosives, lit the makeshift fuse, threw it hard. The explosive landed between the Reapers, detonated with a sharp crack. Rock and dust exploded outward. The creatures screeched, confused, temporarily blinded. Jake scooped up Lyra and ran. His suit gave him extra strength, extra speed. But the Reapers were fast too, very fast. He heard them behind him, gaining, their claws scraping on stone, their clicking growing louder. Jake saw a narrow crevice ahead, too small for the Reapers. He dove inside. The passage was tight, barely wide enough for him with Lyra on his back. He scraped through, rocks tearing at his suit. Behind him, the Reapers tried to follow. Could not fit. They screamed in frustration. Clawing at the opening, Jake kept moving through the crevice. It twisted and turned, eventually opened into a small canyon. He checked behind them. The Reapers were not following. Could not follow. But they would find another way around. Would track them. The hunt was on. They needed to move faster. The 4th kilometer was a nightmare. The ground became unstable. Loose rocks, shifting sand. They had to move carefully. One wrong step could start a slide. Could trap them. Could alert every Reaper in the area. Jake picked each step with precision. Lyra copied his movements. Step by step, meter by meter. Progress was slow but steady. They heard Reapers in the distance. The creatures were coordinating, calling to each other, surrounding them. Jake realized what was happening. The Reapers were not just hunting. They were pack hunting, working together. That changed everything, made everything more dangerous. But he could not stop, could not turn back. They had to keep going. Forward was the only option. At 5 kilometers, Jake saw the landing zone in the distance, a clear area, flat ground. And there, the shuttle. It sat waiting, silver and beautiful, safety, home, so close. But between them and the shuttle was open ground. No cover, no hiding places. And Reapers. Lots of Reapers. At least a dozen. Maybe more, circling the area, waiting. Jake assessed the situation with a soldier's eye. The odds were terrible, maybe impossible, but he had made a promise. Lyra would reach that shuttle. He checked his remaining supplies. 2 explosives left. His spear, his knife, his determination. And one more thing, his humanity. That stubborn refusal to give up that defined his entire species. He knelt down, explained the plan to Lyra. It was simple, desperate, but it was all he had. He would create a distraction, draw the Reapers away. She would run as fast as she could. Straight to the shuttle. Do not look back. Do not stop. No matter what she heard. No matter what happened to him. Just run, Lyra shook her head. Tears in her eyes. She understood what he was saying. Understood what it meant. She grabbed his arm. Made sounds. Words he did not know but understood anyway. She did not want him to die. Did not want to lose him. He was all she had left. Jake pulled her into a hug. This small alien child who had somehow become the most important thing in his life. He told her it would be okay. Told her she was brave. Told her she would see her people again. Would have a future, a life. He told her everything would be fine. Another lie, but a necessary one. Because she needed to believe. Needed to run when the time came, then he stood. Checked his weapons one last time. Looked at the shuttle. At the Reapers. At the open ground. His tactical mind calculated distances, timing, chances of success. The numbers were bad, really bad, but numbers did not account for human stubbornness, for the raw determination that made humans survive when they should not, for the love that made a soldier sacrifice himself for a child he had known for only weeks. Jake took a deep breath, gripped his spear, and screamed. A challenge, a war cry, a declaration that he would not go quietly. The sound echoed across the open ground. Every Reaper turned toward him, focused on him. Good. That was what he wanted. He lit his first explosive, threw it into the pack of Reapers. It exploded with satisfying force. Creatures scattered, screeched, turned toward this small human who dared challenge them. Jake did not wait, he ran, not toward the shuttle. Away from it, drawing the Reapers after him. leading them away from Lyra, away from her path to safety. Behind him, he heard Lyra running, her small feet pounding on stone, heading for the shuttle, for safety, for home. Jake smiled grimly. She was doing it. She was going to make it. That was all that mattered. That was everything. The Reapers chased him, fast, hungry, angry. Jake used every trick he knew, dodged between rocks, changed direction suddenly, made himself hard to catch. He threw his second explosive, caught 2 Reapers in the blast. They went down screaming, but there were more. Always more. His suit was failing. Power almost gone. The exoskeleton stuttered, stopped. Now it was just him, just flesh and bone and will. A Reaper got close, swiped at him. Claws caught his arm, tore through suit and skin. Pain exploded, hot and sharp. Jake ignored it, turned, drove his spear into the creature's mouth. It fell back, dying, but his spear was gone. Stuck in the Reaper's body, he had his knife now, just his knife. And 5 Reapers still coming. Jake backed toward a rock formation, got his back against stone. They could not surround him here, could only come at him from the front. One at a time, he gripped the knife. His arm bled freely. His breath came in gasps. But he was not done. Not yet. The first Reaper lunged. Jake sidestepped, slashed, found an eye. The creature screamed, stumbled. He kicked it hard, sent it into another Reaper. They tangled, fell. Jake used the moment, ran again. Toward the shuttle now. Maybe he could make it, maybe. He could see the shuttle, see figures at the ramp. Kethryn. Lyra was there, safe, waving, screaming his name. So close, just 100 meters. Jake pushed harder. Ignored the pain. Ignored the exhaustion. Ignored everything except moving forward. The Reapers were right behind him. He could hear them, feel their breath. Weapons fire erupted from the shuttle. The Kethryn crew was shooting, covering him, trying to help. Energy bolts flashed past. Hit Reapers, dropped them, but not enough. Not fast enough. A claw caught Jake's leg. He fell, hard, rolled, came up fighting. The knife found flesh, found bone, but there were too many. Then strong hands grabbed him.
Pulled.
Jake woke up in a medical bay. Clean white walls, soft lighting. The beep of monitors. For a moment he thought he was dreaming. Then pain reminded him it was real. His arm hurt. His leg hurt. Everything hurt. But he was alive. That was more than he expected. A Kethryn doctor stood over him. Tall, blue-skinned like Lyra, but darker. Older. The doctor said something. Words Jake did not understand. Then a translator device activated. The words became clear. Jake had been unconscious for 2 days. His injuries were serious but not fatal. Broken bones, torn muscles, blood loss. But humans healed fast. The doctor seemed impressed by that. Jake tried to sit up. Pain shot through his body. The doctor pushed him back gently but firmly. Not yet, too soon. Jake needed rest. Needed time to heal. But Jake had one question that could not wait. Where was Lyra? Was she safe? The doctor smiled, pointed to the corner of the room. Lyra was asleep in a chair, curled up, her small face peaceful. She had not left the medical bay, had stayed by his side for 2 days, refusing to leave. The doctor said she would not eat, would not sleep, until finally exhaustion took her. She had been watching over him, protecting him. The way he had protected her. Jake felt his eyes burn. He was not a man who cried easily, but this small child who refused to leave him. Who cared that much? It broke something inside him. Something hard and cold that had built up during years of war, of fighting, of loss. He blinked hard, cleared his throat, asked the doctor to let her sleep. She needed rest too. The doctor checked his monitors, adjusted his medication, told Jake he was lucky, very lucky. Most species would have died from those injuries, died from the blood loss alone. But humans were tough, remarkably tough. The doctor had read about humans, their resilience, their ability to survive trauma that would kill others. Now he saw it firsthand. He seemed fascinated and respectful in equal measure. Over the next few days, Jake recovered slowly. His body knitted itself back together. Bones healed, muscles repaired. The Kethryn medical technology helped, but mostly it was just human biology doing what it did best. Surviving, adapting, refusing to quit. The doctors were amazed at his progress. What should have taken weeks took days. Lyra was with him every moment he was awake. She brought him food, water, told him stories in broken shared language. She had been learning more human words. He had been learning more Kethrin words. Communication was getting easier. They could talk now. Really talk. Share thoughts, ideas, feelings. She told him about her family, her mother who studied rocks, her father who analyzed minerals, her older brother who wanted to be a pilot. They were all gone now. Killed by the Vraken. She was alone, the last of her family. Jake held her hand, told her she was not alone. She had him, always. That seemed to comfort her. To ease some of the pain, one day the ship's captain came to visit. Commander Vale. She was tall and imposing. Her uniform was crisp and formal, but her eyes were kind. She looked at Jake with something like respect. She had reviewed the footage from his suit. The rescue team had recovered it from the moon. The recording showed everything, every moment of their survival. Every fight, every sacrifice. Commander Vale told Jake that the Kethrin Confederacy was grateful. More than grateful. What he did was exceptional. He saved Lyra when no one else could, when no one else would. He risked everything. Expected nothing in return. That was rare, especially from other species. Most would have abandoned her, left her to die, saved themselves. But Jake did not. That meant something. That changed how the Kethrin viewed humans. The Confederacy wanted to honor him. They were recommending him for the Star of Valor, one of the highest medals in the galaxy, given to those who showed exceptional courage, who saved lives at great personal risk. It would make Jake a hero, not just to the Kethrin, but to many species across the galaxy. His actions would be remembered, celebrated. Jake listened politely. But the medal did not matter to him. The recognition did not matter. All that mattered was sitting in the chair beside his bed, holding his hand. Lyra was alive, safe. That was the only reward he needed, the only one that counted. Commander Vale seemed to understand. She nodded, smiled slightly, told him the medal was coming anyway, whether he wanted it or not. The ship eventually docked at a Kethrin station, a massive structure orbiting a blue-green planet. Home. Lyra's home, the place where she had family waiting. Extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, people who had heard about the research station, who mourned the dead, who never expected to see Lyra again. But now she was returning, alive, whole, thanks to one human who refused to give up. Jake was still recovering, still healing, but he could walk now, slowly, with support. He insisted on accompanying Lyra to meet her family. She wanted him there, needed him there. He was her protector, her friend, the person who saved her life. She would not face this reunion alone. The docking bay was crowded, Kethrin everywhere, waiting, watching. News of Lyra's survival had spread. Everyone wanted to see her, to see the miracle, to see the human who made it possible. As the airlock opened, a wave of sound washed over them. Voices, crying, relief, joy. Grief for those lost mixed with gratitude for this one saved. A woman pushed through the crowd, tall, blue-skinned, eyes glowing with tears. She saw Lyra and froze, then screamed her name, ran forward, scooped the child into her arms, holding her, crying, saying words too fast to translate. This was Lyra's aunt, her mother's sister. The last close family she had left. Lyra cried too, clutched her aunt. But she kept looking back at Jake, making sure he was there, making sure he was not leaving. Jake stood at a respectful distance. This was their moment, their reunion. He did not want to intrude. But Lyra reached for him, pulled him closer, told her aunt in rapid Kethrin about the human, the one who saved her, who fought monsters, who carried her to safety. The aunt looked at Jake, really looked at him, saw his injuries, saw the bandages, saw what he had sacrificed. Her expression changed, softened. She stepped forward, did something unexpected. She hugged him, carefully avoiding his injuries, but firmly, with genuine gratitude. With the love of someone whose family had been returned, she spoke. The translator caught the words. Thank you. Thank you for bringing her home. Thank you for not giving up. Jake did not know what to say. He was not good with emotion. With displays like this, he just nodded, said she was brave, said she made it easy, said he was glad she was safe. Simple words. But they meant everything. The aunt smiled through her tears, told him he would always be welcome here, always be family. The Catherine took such bonds seriously. He had proven himself, earned their trust, their respect, their love. The days that followed were strange for Jake. He was not used to being celebrated, being thanked, being treated like a hero. The Catherine station buzzed with his story. People stopped him in corridors, thanked him, offered gifts, wanted to shake his hand, learn about humans, understand what drove him to do what he did. Jake tried to explain, tried to put into words what he barely understood himself. Humans did not abandon children. They protected the weak. It was built into them, part of their nature, their history, their DNA. They had survived as a species because they looked after each other, because they refused to leave anyone behind. It was not heroic. It was just human. But to the Catherine, it was heroic. Many species in the galaxy were different, more practical, more logical. They calculated survival odds, made rational choices. Sometimes that meant abandoning those who could not keep up, who were too much risk, who reduced overall survival chances. Humans did not think that way. Humans were emotional, stubborn, illogical, and somehow that made them special. Jake spent time with Lyra every day. She was adjusting to life on the station, to being with family again, to safety and routine, but she still had nightmares. Still woke up scared, still needed reassurance that the monsters were not coming. Jake understood. He had his own nightmares, his own scars, physical and mental. Trauma did not disappear just because you survived. They would sit together in quiet moments, not always talking, just being present. That helped, for both of them. They had shared something profound, something that bonded them forever. Survivor's bond, the understanding that comes from facing death together, from choosing to live, to fight, to endure. Eventually, Jake's injuries healed enough for him to return to duty. The Coalition had been notified of his survival. They wanted him back to active service, back to being a soldier. But Jake had changed. The moon had changed him. Lyra had changed him. He no longer wanted to just fight. He wanted to protect, to help, to make sure no child ever had to face what Lyra faced. Alone, abandoned, surrounded by monsters. Before he left, the Catherine held a ceremony. They presented him with the Star of Valor, a crystal medal that caught the light. Beautiful and simple, Commander Vale pinned it to his uniform, spoke about courage, about sacrifice, about the bonds between species, about how one human had changed everything. The ceremony was broadcast across the Catherine Confederacy, across the galaxy. Millions watched, saw the human who saved one alien child, who asked for nothing, expected nothing, just did what needed doing. The story spread, changed minds, changed hearts, made other species look at humanity differently, not as warriors, not as conquerors, but as protectors, as allies worth having. Even the Vraken herd, the species that started it all, that killed Lyris. Jake returned to Coalition space 3 months after leaving the Catherine station. The journey back was long and quiet. He spent most of it thinking about Lyra, about the moon, about what it all meant. His ship carried more than just him now. It carried a story, a legend. News of the human who saved the Catherine child had spread everywhere. Jake Morrison was famous, a hero across multiple species. He was not sure how he felt about that. When his ship docked at the Coalition station, he expected a quiet return. Maybe a debriefing. Maybe reassignment. What he got was different. The docking bay was full. People everywhere, humans, aliens, all waiting, all watching. As he stepped off the ship, they started clapping, cheering, calling his name. It was overwhelming, uncomfortable. Jake was a soldier, not a celebrity. His commanding officer met him at the airlock. General Carter, hard man, tough, not given to emotion. But he shook Jake's hand with genuine respect, told him he did humanity proud, showed the galaxy what humans were really about. The general handed him new orders. Not combat assignments, something different, something better. The Coalition was forming a new unit, a rescue and protection force, multi-species, designed to respond to situations like what happened on Nexus 7. Stranded civilians, Research teams under attack, children in danger. They wanted Jake to lead it. To train others. To teach them how to survive. How to protect. How to never give up. It was perfect. Exactly what Jake wanted without knowing he wanted it. He accepted immediately. Threw himself into the work. Building the team. Training soldiers. Planning operations. The unit grew quickly. Humans, Kethrin, other species. All working together. All dedicated to one mission. Leave no one behind. Protect the innocent. Fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. It was more than a unit. It was a movement. A change in how the galaxy operated. The first mission came 6 weeks later. A mining colony under attack by pirates. Families trapped.
Children hiding.
No way to evacuate. The unit deployed fast, hit hard. Used tactics Jake had learned on the moon. Improvise, adapt, never quit. They saved everyone. Not a single civilian lost. The pirates fled. The colony was safe. It felt good. Right. Like this was what Jake was meant to do all along. More missions followed. Each one different. Each one challenging. But the unit never failed. Never left anyone behind. Their reputation grew. Other species started requesting them specifically. Started trusting them. Started seeing humans as more than warriors. As protectors. As allies. As friends. That shift in perception rippled across the galaxy. Changed politics. Changed treaties. Changed everything. Jake kept the crystal Lyra gave him. Carried it everywhere. It sat on his desk. A reminder of where he came from. What he fought for. Who he fought for. On hard days when missions went wrong, when people died despite his best efforts, he would hold that crystal. Remember a small blue girl. Remember making a promise. Remember keeping it. That gave him strength. Purpose. Reason to continue. He stayed in contact with Lyra. Regular messages. Video calls when possible. She was growing up. Doing well. Going to school. Making friends. Living a normal life. But she never forgot. Never stopped being grateful. She would tell Jake about her day. Her studies. Her dreams. She wanted to be a pilot. Like her brother had wanted. Like Jake was. Carry on the family dream. Jake encouraged her. Told her she could do anything. Be anything. She was smart, brave, determined. She would make an excellent pilot. The best, she laughed. Said it was because she learned from the best. From him, that made Jake smile. Made him feel proud. Like a parent watching their child grow. It was a good feeling. A warm feeling. Something he had not expected to have. Years passed. The unit became official. Got a name. The Morrison Protocol. Named after Jake, after what he did. After the standard he set. It embarrassed him. But he accepted it. If his name helped save lives, he could live with the embarrassment. The protocol became famous, respected. Feared by those who preyed on the weak. Celebrated by those who needed protection. The galaxy changed, slowly but surely. More species adopted similar protocols. More units formed. More resources went to protection instead of just war. Children became safer. Civilians became safer. The idea spread. That protecting the vulnerable was not weakness. It was strength. The highest form of strength. Humanity led that change. Showed the way. Proved it worked. Jake was promoted. Given medals. Offered positions of high authority. He turned down most of them. He did not want to sit behind a desk. Did not want to be a politician. He wanted to be in the field. Leading missions. Saving lives. That was where he belonged. Where he made a difference. The coalition respected that. Let him do what he did best. On the 5-year anniversary of the Nexus 7 rescue, Jake returned to the Kethrin station. Lyra had invited him. She was 13 now. Almost an adult by Kethrin standards. She had something to show him. Something important. When Jake arrived, she met him at the docking bay. Taller now, more confident. But still the same girl. Still his Lyra. She took him to a memorial. A wall with names. Her family. The research team. All those who died on Nexus 7. It was beautiful, simple, respectful. But that was not what she wanted to show him. At the bottom of the memorial was another name. A plaque, it read, saved by Lieutenant Jake Morrison. Coalition forces. A human who taught us what courage means, what sacrifice means, what family means. Jake stood silent, staring at the plaque, at his name, at words that made his throat tight. Lyra stood beside him, took his hand, told him this memorial was not just for the dead. It was for the living too, for him, for what he did, for the future he made possible. Not just for her, but for everyone. Every child who lived because of the Morrison Protocol. Every family reunited. Every life saved. That was his legacy. They spent the day together, talking, remembering, planning the future. Lyra was applying to Flight Academy. Jake promised to write her a recommendation. She laughed, said she did not need his recommendation. Everyone knew who she was. The girl saved by Jake Morrison. That alone would get her in. But she wanted his words anyway. Wanted his blessing. He gave it gladly, proudly. That evening, they stood on an observation deck, watching ships come and go. The station was busy, alive, safe. Lyra talked about her dreams, about flying, about exploring, about making a difference, just like Jake did. He listened, smiled, felt that warmth again, that pride, that sense of purpose fulfilled. She asked him something then, something that had been bothering her. Why did he do it? Why risk everything for one alien child? They barely knew each other. He could have left her, saved himself. No one would have blamed him. So why fight impossible odds? Why almost die? Why care so much? Jake thought about the question. How to explain, how to put into words something he barely understood himself. Finally he spoke. Told her it was not about calculations, not about odds or logic or rational thinking. It was about being human. Humans did not abandon children. Could not. It was wired into them, built into their species, into their DNA, into their souls. When they saw someone helpless, someone in danger, someone who needed help, they helped. That was all. That was everything. He told her that humans had survived because of that instinct, that drive to protect, to care, to refuse to leave anyone behind. It made them weaker in some ways, made them take risks other species would not, made them emotional, irrational, but it also made them strong, gave them purpose, gave them bonds that held even in the darkest times, made them human. Lyra listened, understood, nodded slowly. She said humans were special, different from other species, not physically. They were not the strongest or fastest or smartest, but they had something others lacked, something that made them unique. They had heart. They had hope. They had the stubborn refusal to accept defeat, to accept abandonment, to accept loss. They fought always, even when they should not, especially when they should not. Jake smiled. She got it. Really got it? She understood what made humans tick, what drove them, what made them dangerous and wonderful and frustrating and amazing all at once. That understanding would serve her well, would make her a better pilot, a better person, a better friend to humanity. Before Jake left the station, Lyra gave him another gift, a photo of the two of them, taken on the observation deck. She had signed it, in both Kithran and human writing. It said, "To my hero, my protector, my family, thank you for not giving up. Thank you for carrying me home. I will never forget. I will make you proud." Your Lyra. Jake put the photo in his quarters, next to the crystal, his two most precious possessions, reminders of what mattered, of who mattered, of why he fought, of why he lived. They anchored him, kept him focused, kept him going on hard days, kept him human. More years passed. Jake continued leading the Morrison Protocol, saving lives, training others, spreading the message. Never give up, never abandon, never accept defeat. It became more than a military doctrine. It became a philosophy, a way of life, something that defined humanity in the eyes of the galaxy, something that made them respected, valued. Needed Lyra graduated from Flight Academy, top of her class. Jake attended the ceremony, watched her receive her wings, watched her take her oath, watched her become a pilot. She looked at him during the ceremony, smiled, mouthed thank you. He nodded, smiled back. She did not need to thank him. Seeing her succeed was thanks enough. Seeing her fly was everything.